The sun was beating down mercilessly on the dusty streets of Brookfield, a small town where hope seemed to be rationed as tightly as the groceries on the shelves. In the sweltering afternoon, a young boy named Arlo clutched a small, worn paper bag against his chest, his knuckles white from gripping it so tightly. Inside were the last scraps of food he had been able to gather over the week. His mother, a frail woman with pale skin and a persistent cough, lay upstairs on a threadbare mattress, her eyes closed and lips slightly parted as she struggled to breathe. Arlo's small hands shook not just from hunger, but from fear, the fear of losing her. He had done everything he could, begging, searching, even sneaking a few pennies from neighbors, but it was never enough. At the same time, across town, a black luxury SUV pulled up in front of a small, aging grocery store. Its windows were tinted, but the sheer size of the vehicle and its polished elegance made the worn bricks and faded signage of the store look even more dilapidated. From inside stepped a man whose reputation preceded him, a single-dad CEO named Callen Vey, known for his ruthless efficiency and a life built entirely on numbers, not people. Today, however, he had come not for business deals, but for a routine errand. A simple stop at the grocery store to pick up some essentials. He wasn't expecting anything unusual, least of all to be confronted by a small boy on the brink of desperation. Arlo watched the man with wary eyes, gripping his bag tighter as Callen approached. He had seen people like this before, wealthy, hurried, uncaring. They took what they wanted, often without a second thought. And as Callen reached the checkout counter, Arlo's voice broke the humid air. "Please, don't take our food, my mom is sick." The words were small, almost swallowed by the noise of the street, but they hit Callen like a physical blow. He froze mid-step, his expensive leather shoes planted firmly on the cracked concrete. For a moment, he simply stared at the boy, his face streaked with dust and tears, his eyes wide with a mixture of hope and fear. There was a rawness to Arlo's plea that made the CEO feel something he hadn't felt in years: vulnerability, pure and unshielded. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. This story is for anyone who knows the power of compassion. Callen's mind raced. In the past, he would have walked past, maybe even sneered at the audacity of the boy, but something in the timbre of Arlo's voice, so desperate, so honest, made his chest tighten. "Your mom, she's sick?" he asked, his voice softer than he expected. Arlo nodded quickly, nearly tripping over his own words. She can't get out of bed. We don't have enough food. Please don't take this." He held the bag up, as if that small gesture could shield them from the harshness of the world. Callen felt a lump in his throat. For years, he had built walls, around his emotions, around his heart, but in that moment, he realized the walls weren't just protecting him, they were isolating him. He saw himself in Arlo, years ago, as a kid with nothing but determination, fighting for scraps, learning to survive in a world that often overlooked the weak. Without thinking, he knelt to Arlo's level, his expensive cufflinks catching the sunlight. "Hey, what's your mom's name?" he asked, genuinely curious, leaning in. "Maris," Arlo whispered. "Maris Van. She's really sick. I try to help, but I'm just a kid. I don't know if we'll make it." Callen felt a tug in his chest that he couldn't explain. Here was a boy who had nothing, whose life seemed swallowed by despair, yet he was standing bravely, pleading not for himself but for his mother. The raw courage of Arlo reminded him of all the things he had forgotten in the pursuit of wealth: empathy, humility, the quiet power of human connection. Callen started, unsure of what to say. Words felt inadequate. He looked at the bag again, the meager contents symbolic of survival itself. Then, in a decision that surprised even him, he said, "Let's make sure your mom eats today." Arlo blinked, stunned. You will." Callen nodded, a small smile breaking through his usually stern expression. "Come with me, I'll help." The walk from the store to their small, crumbling apartment was long but filled with unspoken understanding. Arlo chattered nervously, explaining what Maris liked to eat, how the doctors couldn't do much, how he stayed up nights trying to keep her comfortable. Callen listened, learning not just about Maris, but about the resilience of people who live without luxury yet survive with dignity. When they arrived, Maris was lying in her bed, her cough hacking through the thin walls of the apartment. She looked up, weary and pale, and then froze as she saw Callen. Arlo ran to her, holding her hand tightly. "Mom, he's helping," he said, his voice full of hope. Callen knelt beside her bed, setting down the groceries. "I'm here to help," he said simply. It wasn't a grand gesture, no dramatic speeches, but it carried more weight than anything either of them had expected. Maris's eyes glistened with tears, a mix of relief and disbelief washing over her face. She hadn't felt hope in months. Over the next few days, Callen returned, quietly checking in on them, bringing medicine, fresh food, and sometimes just his presence. He never stayed long, understanding the delicate balance of pride and need. But his visits transformed the tiny apartment from a place of despair into a sanctuary of human kindness. Arlo's laughter, once rare and fleeting, began to echo down the narrow hallways, bringing warmth that even the harsh sunlight couldn't provide. Yet, despite the growing bond, the reality of life's fragility always lingered. Maris's health was unstable, and Arlo's eyes often carried a worry far beyond his years. Callen felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him, not as a CEO or a benefactor, but as someone who had glimpsed the fragile beauty of human connection and couldn't turn away. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow across the apartment, Arlo asked, "Why are you helping us?" Callen paused, looking out the window at the fading light. He had asked himself that very question countless times in his life, but never in this context. "Because," he said slowly, "sometimes people need someone to believe in them. And you remind me why believing matters." Arlo's eyes shimmered with tears. "I want to help people too, like you help us." The CEO smiled, feeling something unfamiliar but welcome, pride, but not the pride of achievement, rather the pride of witnessing courage and hope flourish. "You will," he said. "You already are." The following weeks were a testament to the quiet miracles that compassion can ignite. With Callen's support, Maris received better medical care, and her strength slowly returned. Arlo learned to share his story, helping other children in the neighborhood who were struggling, becoming a beacon of hope himself. Callen, in turn, rediscovered parts of himself he had long buried under spreadsheets, meetings, and corporate battles, the capacity to care, to nurture, and to be present. One day, as Arlo and Callen walked through the local park, Maris holding onto Arlo's hand, she whispered, "Thank you." Callen looked at her, and then at the boy who had changed his life more than he could have imagined. "No, thank you," he replied. "You reminded me what really matters." Life didn't become perfect. Challenges remained, as they always do. But through this connection, a single act of compassion rippled into many, demonstrating that even in the darkest times, humanity could shine with incredible brightness. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video to remind the world that kindness, second chances, and hope can change lives. Before we end, let's take a moment to honor every child and parent fighting battles in silence, and every stranger who chooses to step forward and make a difference. It's these moments that redefine the meaning of humanity. In the end, it wasn't the wealth, the influence, or the titles that mattered. It was a small boy's courage to speak the truth, a mother's quiet strength, and a man's choice to care. Together, they showed that sometimes, hope comes in the most unexpected forms, and that one act of kindness can rewrite destinies.